Biden is facing significant scrutiny for his decision to fist bump the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, despite strong opposition from the American public. The meeting with the Crown Prince, who was involved in the killing of an American journalist, has sparked widespread criticism. Adding insult to injury, Biden also received a financial lesson from the Crown Prince himself. During a discussion on the Green Deal, the Crown Prince warned that implementing unrealistic emissions reduction policies that exclude major energy sources would result in unprecedented inflation, higher energy prices, increased unemployment, and a deterioration of social and security issues. It is disheartening when a leader has to receive guidance on governing the country from one of their adversaries. One of the top economic advisors to the Crown Prince has claimed that the United States possesses abundant oil reserves, surpassing even Saudi Arabia, and therefore has the capacity to meet its energy demands easily. While the Crown Prince disagrees with President Biden's stance, Senator Bernie Sanders expressed his complete support for Biden's Green Deal during an appearance on ABC News. Sanders also criticized Senator Joe Manchin for deliberately undermining a Democratic president. According to Sanders, Manchin cannot be taken seriously as he has strong ties to the fossil fuel industry and has received campaign contributions from 25 Republican billionaires. Sanders believes that Manchin is intentionally sabotaging President Biden and the Democratic Party for his personal gain. However, none of Manchin's colleagues seem to acknowledge his valid concerns about the escalating cost of goods and services, which are spiraling out of control. There is a divided opinion about Senator Joe Manchin among his colleagues. Some dislike him because he refuses to push forward their agenda. On the other hand, Manchin was the only Democrat who publicly expressed concerns about the escalating inflation. Thus, he is both loved and hated depending on one's specific needs and political leanings. Following President Biden's trip to Saudi Arabia, CNN anchor asked Republican Governor Doug Ducey if he would comply with Biden's request to temporarily lift Arizona's gas tax. In response, Ducey highlighted that Arizona already has the lowest flat tax in the nation and recently implemented the largest tax decrease in state history. Meanwhile, he criticized President Biden for engaging with murderers and despots in the Middle East while demanding more energy supply. Ducey suggested that Biden should consider opening up the Keystone Pipeline and collaborating with America's energy leaders to provide a greater supply of both fossil fuels and clean energy to address the crisis. Ducey emphasized that Arizona would not implement temporary or gimmicky measures that could negatively impact his successor or the voters. The ongoing exchange of remarks continues, with one side advocating for effective policies and suggesting that President Joe Biden could play a leading role from the White House. However, former President Barack Obama dismissed the idea of temporarily lowering the gas tax as a gimmick. This exchange of words reveals how they are taking shots at each other, highlighting their differing perspectives and opinions. According to the White House itself, there is optimism about a potential significant reduction in gas prices for Americans. A senior energy advisor from the White House, Brian Dees, recently predicted that average gas prices could sharply decline from $4.53 per gallon to below $4 per gallon within a few weeks. Dees made this statement during an appearance on CBS. Additionally, President Biden hinted at ongoing negotiations with Saudi Arabia that could potentially lead to further reductions in gas prices if a deal is reached in the near future. However, some may perceive Biden's actions as hypocritical since he declined to purchase oil from Russia. This contrast in approaches may raise questions about consistency and hypocrisy in his decision-making. There is a sense of frustration and helplessness as ordinary citizens find themselves caught in the middle of political conflicts and decisions regarding oil purchases. While the United States refused to buy oil from Russia, it is now purchasing oil from Saudi Arabia, which itself buys oil from Russia. This complex situation has created a messy scenario that directly impacts people's daily lives and wallets. While the White House claims that lower gas prices will be a positive outcome for the American people and will arrive soon, there is a concern about the sincerity of these statements. Although a drop in gas prices to around $4 per gallon is a welcome development, it is still nearly double the price when President Biden took office. The worry intensifies as President Biden's climate czar, John Kerry, advises against meeting with American oil companies or extracting new oil. Kerry emphasizes the need for the United States to transition to clean energy, despite the potential hardships it may cause. It is disheartening when individuals who are extremely wealthy, like Kerry, make decisions and offer reassurances about our pain being acceptable for the greater good of the country. It is indeed frustrating to see that those in power, like John Kerry, do not seem to experience the same hardships as ordinary citizens. Kerry's extensive use of a private jet, consuming more fuel in a single trip than most of us would in a decade, only adds to the hypocrisy when he blames us for the situation. Furthermore, Brian Dees, another top advisor to President Biden, claimed that Americans have sufficient financial resources and low unemployment. He also stated that the United States is better positioned than any other country to transition to clean energy. While they assure us that lower gas prices are a victory, it is clear that behind the scenes, they are still pushing aggressively for electric cars and solar power. Ironically, news headlines report upcoming blackouts in California and Texas, exposing the existing fragility of the electric grid. This raises concerns about whether the current infrastructure can handle the increased demand resulting from the transition to clean energy. While the transition to clean energy is being pursued, the current reality for everyday individuals includes experiencing pain and hardships at places like grocery stores and gas stations. The process of transitioning still requires significant steps and actions to be taken. Amidst the criticisms faced by President Biden for his fist bump, former President Donald Trump is also facing his own share of criticism. The families of 9/11 victims penned a letter to Trump, urging him to cancel a Saudi Arabia-backed golf tournament hosted at one of his golf courses. The letter expressed deep disappointment, stating that it is unfathomable for a former president of the United States to prioritize personal financial gain over the remembrance of their loved ones. They appealed to Trump to reconsider his business relationship with the Saudi Golf League and requested a meeting with him to discuss the matter further. I will provide updates on whether Trump decides to cancel the golf tournament, but as of now, there is no confirmation of his decision. In a recent report, I highlighted a study documenting 60 instances where a mass shooter was stopped by a law-abiding citizen with a legal firearm. Following that report, a 22-year-old individual bravely stopped a shooter at a mall over the weekend. Tragically, the attacker managed to kill 3 people before being neutralized. However, the situation could have been far worse if the armed citizen had not intervened. Indiana Police Chief Jim Ison acknowledged the citizen as the real hero of the day, emphasizing that they swiftly stopped the shooter as soon as the incident began. This story, although stirring mixed feelings about guns and different types of firearms, garnered significant attention in the news. California Governor Gavin Newsom continues to shape his political image by criticizing prominent Republican figures. When asked about his widely discussed ad targeting DeSantis, Newsom expressed his disgust for DeSantis' recent actions and voiced his disapproval. I reached a point where I could no longer tolerate the situation. It seemed that Governor Newsom was targeting various groups, including the LGBTQ+ community and other vulnerable minorities. I